I took a long pause there because I really wanted to make a peacock joke. Like I really wanted to, but it's too late at night to be doing that, and I have to be up in a few hours. But I mean, moral of the story is St. Peter's just keeps on cocking on. Let's just go from there, fellas.
Let the peacocks fly. This I don't even care that everybody's bracket at this point is garbage, but just watching them win and going to the Elite Eight as a 15 seed, this team doesn't play music in their workout room because there's a classroom right next to it. This team's budget for recruiting is $28,000. Are you kidding me? And they're in the Elite Eight? What?
They're feeling it too. Like Doug Eddert jumped up on the scorers table today after the game, like he was Kobe Bryant. And I don't know if you guys saw, but in the post-game press conference, someone tried to ask him about it. And Shaheen Holloway was like also at the table answering questions. And he looked at Doug Eddert and he said, "You did what?" Like he had no idea that he had jumped up on the table, which he probably would have heard something about it. And Eddert was just like, next question, next question. But I thought that was so funny. Such a good moment for the St. Peter's team to be able to play in Philadelphia tonight. They had the arena packed. Everyone was rooting for St. Peter's. Those kids, their first game this year, 434 people showed up to that game. That was the attendance. And tonight they played in an NBA arena. They got dressed in an NBA locker room, and they went out and advanced to the Elite Eight.
They probably had hot water like before practice, after practice, before the game, after the game. Like just hearing the stories about them, like Loyola Chicago was supposed to play there or did play there a season or two ago, and like they didn't have water after the game, so they just had to like go back to Chicago smelling. And like, I mean, I said this last week after they beat Kentucky, but Theo, this is great for Quinnipiac Bobcats, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is great for the MAC. I don't think.
Yeah, everybody eats when you keep going on. Same thing in college football playoff. Like the MAAC, they're just going to get a boatload of money from this. And I mean, for everybody's sake, they're just going to keep hoping they get more money for the conference.
Yeah, I don't think a MAC Siena had won a couple games in like 2009, but I don't think a MAC team had ever made the Sweet 16. And now St. Peter's is in the Elite Eight, and they're even like a bottom tier MAC school. I guess if you were to compare like campuses and funding, I would say they're towards the bottom. So I mean, what they've done is really incredible.
All I'm saying is this is what happens when we let a team besides Iona win the MAC. Get teams to the Elite Eight. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought was interesting that I read during the game was for Purdue, this was like an impossible situation for them. They're always the team that we always feel high on going into the tournament, and then they never perform, a la Gonzaga, but we'll get into that in a little bit. If they won, it was like, oh, wow, you beat a 15 seed to make it to the Elite Eight. Like, congratulations. And then they lost, and it's like, wow, you lost to a 15 seed to make it into the Elite Eight. Like, this team was legit, and that just stinks for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once I saw the matchup, because I was texting people like, can St. Peter's move on and stuff, and I was like, you can never trust Purdue. Like Matt Painter, they lost to, they always lose early. Like we've seen them lose in the first round countless times, and they did it again.
I mean, they had their run with like Carson Edwards, Ryan Klein, and the Eifert brother, but then they lose to Virginia in the Elite Eight, I think it was. They had a good run there, but then besides that, what has Purdue done for like the past 10 years? They've had good teams, they've had good players, but they just can't get it done.
Mm-hmm. And this is like Purdue is #1 in the country this year. Like this was maybe that I think that was the first time Purdue had ever been #1 in the country. So there's a case to be made that this was Purdue's best team ever, and they went out to the Peacocks.
They had the roster to do it. They had, Trevion Williams, Edie, Ivy. They had the roster to go far, and people were saying that this is a roster that can make the Final Four, but they just kind of choked it away. That loose ball foul at the end just screwed them over.
Mm-hmm. I will say, before the Sweet 16, there was something I was kind of noticing. Like it's Coach K's last year. Duke and North Carolina had never met in the NCAA tournament before. And I was like, hey, like this is kind of interesting. They're like both in the Sweet 16. I was like talking to some people. I was like, what do you think? Like, you think they could match up? And all 4 games this week went the way of putting that matchup forward. Like, if there was ever an NCAA rigged moment, it would give us Duke and Carolina in the Final Four in Coach K's last year. And we had Arkansas going out and beating Gonzaga. Duke wins. So now Duke is now favored to come out of that region. And we have North Carolina beating UCLA. And now they get St. Peter's instead of Purdue. And now North Carolina is going to be huge favorites to win that region. And all of a sudden, like this thing that we wouldn't have expected at all is coming out of nowhere. And now it's likely to happen.
Imagine the ticket prices for that game. If it's actually Duke versus North Carolina, the ticket price for that game is going to be insane. Man. But at the same time, crazy scenario too. I'm still cheering for the Peacocks. I still want them to go to the Final Four. But I'd be fine with a UNC versus Duke Final Four. That would be a super fun matchup to watch.
So not to change the subject, but just because I saw it, Lane Kiffin threw out the first pitch tonight at the Ole Miss game, and he threw a yellow golf ball. If you remember his incident against Tennessee last college football season. So I'm in this like pickle with North Carolina, St. Peter's, right? Theo, you know, because you live in New Jersey, near New Jersey. I don't know where you currently are right now, but they said at the end of the game that like the entire state of New Jersey was rallying behind the Peacocks, which I kind of like pushed back on because like if you ask most people, especially in New Jersey, now even they're like, oh, they play in New Jersey. Like the whole state isn't rallying for them. So that was kind of like a weird thing to say. But I also hate North Carolina. And I don't want if like it to be Duke, St. Peter's in the Final Four. I don't want that to be like, because Duke will lose that game if they play St. Peter's. That's just how the universe works. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would be fantastic.
So it's just like a lose-lose. And especially if Duke were to make it and to lose to one of those teams, it's just like a super loss. So I think that whole dynamic going into Sunday for those two teams is very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not counting out Arkansas either. Like the Muss Bus. Eric Musselman's one of my favorite coaches in the country. And they beat Gonzaga and still didn't really play that well. Like JD Note was kind of awful in that game. He shot like 30% from the field. So they could even play a little better. I would not discount Arkansas.
I just want to say Eric Musselman is a freaking insane psycho. That dude is so crazy. I mean, as a coach, like, that guy is crazy. But you're right. Like Arkansas didn't even play that great against Gonzaga, yet they pulled up. I mean, they were just it just felt like they wanted to win it. It just Gonzaga just didn't have what it took to win that game. It was a really disappointing performances. I mean, Chet got those 4 fouls like right off the bat, which kind of hurt him. Then Drew just kind of fell off the entire game. Then Strother, like this is the guy that they were relying on coming in this tournament. He was their 3-point shooter, and he just didn't show up. It was a really disappointing performance for Gonzaga.
And Nembhard, like he was a reason I was sold on Gonzaga because the senior guard's a big part of the team, and that's what Andrew Nembhard was for Gonzaga. And he just played a horrible game. I think he had like 5 points. He was invisible for most of the game.
Yeah, had 5 turnovers. Not a great performance. And then we have another Gonzaga team that failed, that has so much hype built around it that it just fails.
Yeah, but are you really surprised? Like we shouldn't be.
Yeah, no, because I thought they were past the point of like losing this early in the tournament. Like they started making some deep runs. I don't know. Like they get the choke label, but like Gonzaga does have the most tournament wins of the last 10 years. Like they do win games.
Yeah, but they don't win like the game. And like I'm never going. Well, I mean, besides the fact that I picked Duke in every tournament except for last year, but I'm never going to pick Gonzaga to win a tournament until they do. It's how Villanova was until they won 2 out of 3 or 4, whatever it was. But they should I don't know why we keep believing in them. Same thing with Arizona, even. I mean, we're not at that point of talking about that game yet, but Arizona kind of came out of nowhere, and then everyone's like, yeah, you know what? We'll pick them to win the tournament, and then they don't even make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah. I mean, these narratives are like a lot of what we follow when we make these brackets, but like you also got to remember like the last couple national champions, like Scott Drew, who Baylor always lost in the first round. Like Baylor always choked. And it was Tony Bennett who always underachieved and always lost. And it was Jay Wright. So like I like these teams change year to year. I know like we as college basketball fans love to carry these narratives with us because like that's how we remember everything, but they're not as true as we like to believe. Like at any year Gonzaga can do it.
I don't know. I mean, I think it all started with Adam Morrison crying on the court, and ever since then, I think they just cursed him. I think they cursed him. I don't think they're ever going to win a championship because of that one single moment.
I mean, if you want to talk about their scheduling, I guess that's one thing. Like maybe playing 20 games against WCC competition before going into the tournament isn't a good thing. And like maybe they'll never win while that's the case.
I mean, like,
overhyped a little bit.
Say they move to the Pac-12, not that they ever would, because that's dumb. Because, you know, those WCC banners mean a lot more to them than anything else, apparently. But even then, like, they lose a few games that they shouldn't, because that's just how, you know, conference basketball is in college. And it's just the same thing. So, you know what? At least let them get a banner. But, I mean, let's keep it in the Pac-12. Arizona losing to Houston. Houston, I'll admit, I was super high on them last year. This year, I wasn't for some reason. Kind of look like an idiot now.
And this Houston team's way better than last year's team. Like last year's team made the Final Four, but if you look at who they got to play, they got very lucky. Like they got to play Rutgers in the second round. And I think they got 11 seed Syracuse and Buddy Boeheim in the Sweet 16. And they somehow stumbled into Oregon State in the Elite Eight. So they made the Final Four, but like that team I was never sold on. This year's Houston team is just like beating the crap out of teams. And like they just pummeled two really good teams in a row. I think they're good enough to actually win it all this year.
I 100% agree. Coming into the tournament, I think we talked about it a little bit, how they were a little underseeded coming in, and they're kind of proving everybody right who thought that way. I mean, they going up Kyler Edwards, and it's just been an absolute star in this tournament so far. Kelvin Sampson, once again, leading a great team deep into the playoffs. It's a great team to watch. It's probably my favorite team besides the Peacocks, just because coming into this, they were so underseeded, just being in that conference, all the teams were, but now they're just so good, especially on defense, which is my favorite part of basketball to watch.
Mm-hmm. They've had some injuries too, but I mean, they've overcome it. And I've just never seen a team attack the offensive glass the way Houston does. The way they offensive rebound is like actually a pleasure to watch. Like almost their best offense is just missing shots, because then they have three guys running to the rim, following it, making shots. It's really fun.
So Kansas goes 2 of 13 from 3, and they still barely beat Providence. And I mean, the Jayhawks, that was stupid of me to say. Anyways, only one seed left. And, you know, I mean, I picked them in my Final Four. I like their chances going into this weekend.
Mm-hmm. I picked Kansas to win it all, but like they've been kind of unimpressive. It's just like they've won, but not that convincingly, and not really against great teams. And they're about to get Miami up next too. I actually think will push them, but I'm still waiting to see the version of Kansas that I thought could win it all.
We just haven't been seeing that like Oshae performance yet. It seems like he's kind of fell off towards the end of this tournament, or the end of this year, which is kind of disappointing because he was so electric through the first like 3/4 of the season. They kind of, not entirely, but he was up for like player of the year candidacy through most of the year until he kind of fell off a little bit. I really want to see, if there's anything that I'm wishing for, I want to see just a great Oshae game. That would be excellent for this weekend, because he definitely has a talent for it. There's no doubt about that. Just hasn't been able to put it together in a tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he caught that huge lob at the rim tonight, which was awesome. And like he makes those highlight dunks, but he kind of his shot wasn't falling, and he kind of just got taken out of the game because his shot selection really isn't that great. So when it's not falling, you can't really justify taking more pull up threes off the dribble. But I think once he starts hitting them and that light goes green, I think there's a great Oshae performance coming. I agree.
I mean, Miami, Iowa State, as you guys just said, Miami did win. That game I never got like a good sense on it the whole time I was watching. I don't know if that was just me or if you guys felt the same.
Well, it came from like the weirdest part of the like the bracket, like the side of the bracket where like everybody was like, about these teams, like LSU, Iowa State, Wisconsin, and then when this like matchup finally occurred, it was like, this is what we're having, and I think it doesn't help that the Peacocks are going so far too, taking a little bit of the steam away from Miami. I'm sure if St. Peter's wasn't going this far, a lot more people would be paying attention to them. But it just feels like this doesn't have that much energy compared to a lot of the other games this weekend.
The ACC, I will say, got screwed though with this seeding process because they're now proving that they might have been the best conference all along, and they only got 5 teams in, but 3 of them are in the Elite 8, like Duke, and then they put Carolina as an 8 seed and they're in it, and Miami as a 10 seed. Like both teams were clearly underseeded. And then you had teams like Wake and Virginia who had winning records in the ACC and like just weren't considered for the tournament because the committee didn't think it was a good league. But as we've seen after the fact with this tournament, like the ACC was a very good league this year with 3 teams in the Elite 8.
And that doesn't even like bring up the other teams that didn't even go for it. Like Virginia Tech, who went on a huge run towards the end of the year, yet got ranked as an 11 seed. They won the ACC, and it's kind of crazy looking back on the teams that have lost, especially in the ACC, and like probably should have been ranked higher. And that is one of the conferences that definitely got screwed, as like you said, Theo, in the seeding process.
Like Notre Dame was an 11 seed. They were second place regular season in the ACC, and Alabama was a 6 seed, and they were like 7th in the SEC regular season. And like after this, I would honestly say the ACC is better than the SEC. Like I like my big take. Arkansas is still alive, but I liked Kentucky. I liked Tennessee. I liked Auburn. I thought the SEC was really good, and all those teams got knocked out. So I like the ACC is just proving to be a better league.
Who are the bigger losers conference-wise this tournament? The Big Ten or the SEC?
The Big Ten just always loses, though. Like we're so used to this with the Big Ten.
No championships in the 21st century. That's kind of garbage for a conference, for an elite conference, Power 5 conference.
And it's been a lot of Sweet 16 exits recently.
Yeah. Disappointing performance after I mean, you had the Michigan teams of the early Michigan, Wisconsin teams, but since then, we really haven't seen much. It's been very disappointing exits from a lot of highly seeded Big Ten teams, like Ohio State last year, the Michigan State against Middle Tennessee. It's been the Big Ten always finds a way to disappoint.
Even Illinois was the big one last year. Like they were finally back in it. One seed out of the Big Ten, they lost.
So Theo, when we made our guarantees, you are I'm still in play, but you're the only one that your guarantee didn't come true.
No, I still can because Arkansas can beat Duke.
Oh yeah, I forgot they were in the SEC, but that's not gonna happen. All right, so Ethan's the only one that was totally right. 2 out of 8 Big Ten teams make the Sweet 16. And I still got Duke one disappoint. And I mean, the way it's going, Duke's gonna win. So, yeah. All right,
I would be disappointed. Your prediction would be wrong if Duke won it all because I would be disappointed.
It's good for Coach K. He deserves one more,
No.
I feel like this is a perfect segue before we talk about the games later on today and tomorrow. How much money is Shaheen Holloway going to get in like 2 weeks?
He just went from like getting the Seton Hall job to like getting the Knicks job.
Yeah, but honestly though, how much? Because Chris Beard got he also made it to a national championship, and that was just the first thing I could think of. he got a ridiculous amount of money to go to a school in the same state and leave like a program that he loved. So I imagine Holloway will just get any amount of money from any program across the country.
hmm That's what I mean. Like everyone's doing the Seton Hall thing, and I get he played there, but like Shaheen Holloway's too good of a coach to coach at Seton Hall, is how I feel.
You think how much of a possibility is it that he stays?
At St. Peter's,
Yeah.
it's very unlikely, I'd say.
Very, very unlikely. He's gonna get a
5%.
fat paycheck from whoever wants him. It's gonna be, ooh, he's gonna get some money.
You think he goes somewhere like notable, or he takes like a good mid-major job? Or basically whoever offers him the most money and gives him the best chance to make another run.
I think his floor really is the Seton Hall job. Like it seems like that was almost a done deal beforehand. It's just now the question is like, did he price himself out of that into something better? But like I think the floor is going to be a Big East job at his alma mater.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Tommy Lloyd, he was an assistant coach. I know it's for Gonzaga, but he got paid big with Arizona this year. I expect no less from Holloway. He's going to get a good job, and he's going to do a good job there.
All right. I think I know what you two are going to say. But what's the best game we got in the Elite Eight?
Ooh.
I would say the best game I think is going to be Houston Villanova.
Yeah, I'd agree.
The dynamics between the two teams, it's just it's two different styles of play, two different conferences from two teams from two different conferences. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. Watching Samuels versus Edwards, I'm excited. I'm most excited for that matchup.
Yeah, I'd agree. The contrast of styles is like Houston's going to be very aggressive, and like can Nova's scheme, can they just methodically break down Houston with their passing and 3-point shooting? And that's what's going to decide the game.
I honestly thought you two were going to go in the battle of the body parts between the cocks and the heels. I just thought that was the game you two. I mean, maybe it won't be the best game. It might be, it's 60-55 final, but that's what you two were going to go.
I'm excited to watch that matchup, but either way, I'm fine with either of those two teams winning. I would like to see North Carolina versus Duke, but I would love the Peacocks to go to the Final Four.
Mm-hmm. This North Carolina team's honestly becoming very likable as a neutral observer, just like the players they have. Brady Manick, Armando Bacot, Leaky Black, Caleb Love, like they just have a lot of like really good like college basketball March Madness guys that I'm going to remember for a long time.
Do you guys remember when we were breaking down the tournament, we were talking about like what's the total number of teams ranking in the Final Four? Isn't it crazy that it could be over 30?
I was thinking about that. I was doing some like math like before the tournament started of like previous like rankings and seeing the lowest I found was like 8 or 9 and the highest was like 18. So like if St. Peter's makes it, we're already going over that. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. I think 15 versus 8. What is that? That's 23. That's got to be like the highest seed edition matchup we've ever had in the Elite Eight. I think before it might have been like Loyola Chicago and Kansas State, which was like an 11 versus 9 a couple years ago. But that's 20. Like a 15 seed in the Elite Eight is ridiculous, and we playing an 8 seed like that.
Yeah, we could get 15, 30. We could get 34 in the Final Four. That's crazy.
I mean, the highest seed to ever previously make the Elite Eight was a 12 seed. So having a 15 seed, it's just tournament's crazy. It's a crazy year.
Mm-hmm. And this is like not one of the flukier runs we've seen. Like St. Peter's is actually just beating these teams. Like they're executing better than them. They're just winning the last couple minutes of each half. Like they're closing well. They're hitting all their free throws.
Like, and they beat two title contending teams. Like Kentucky and Purdue were two popular picks for the title this year. Beat both of them,
Mhm.
and beat Kentucky in overtime. Beat Purdue within like the last minute, hitting free throws.
And
Mhm.
they
And
beat
Murray
Murray
State had the
State.
best
Yeah,
record.
everybody thought Murray State was like a Cinderella like contender.
Yeah, Murray State had the best record this year in college basketball, like 30-2. That's another great win.
And I love how they still don't have logos on their warm-ups.
Yeah, that was so funny.
I
No
love how
love
they're
from
just
Adidas.
like so. I understand it's only a week. You can only do so much and all that stuff. But I just love that so much. All right. So there are other teams besides the St. Peter's Peacocks, of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
They
we
don't
talked
matter
about
as
it.
much.
I know which way you two are leaning. You know which way I'm leaning. Number 4, Arkansas. Number 2, Duke. How's it gonna go?
I think Duke's gonna pull this matchup out. I'm not confident in how Arkansas has been playing. They just seem a little inconsistent for me, and uh, Duke's been playing great as of recently. Jack Williams has just been going off. I don't see how they're gonna, or Mark Williams, not Jack Williams. Mark Williams has been going off, and I just don't see how they're gonna stop the Heat anytime soon.
Mhm. I'll give credit to Duke. They really can beat you from all three levels of the basketball court. Like they have Mark Williams and Theo John inside. Like Paolo is a underrated passer. Like he gets into the mid range, makes a lot of good decisions. And I mean, they got some shooting now too with Roach and Trevor Keels and AJ Griffin. So, it's a good, well-rounded team. Um, Kind of similar to some past Duke teams that have won. I think they got as good of a chance anyone in the field, and I think they will advance.
Are we buying the Hurricanes over the Jayhawks at all?
I don't think they'll win, but like Miami's good. It's going to be a good close game. I'll say like they will give Kansas problems. Might have a lead in the second half.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's not going to be a blowout, but I'm pretty confident. I think out of all the matchups in the Elite Eight, I would bet my money on Kansas to win.
All right. What's a player that they may not be favored to win, but has to be the best player on the court for their team to win?
I want to go back to that Duke Arkansas matchup. JD Note, if they're not favored to win. Arkansas is not favored to win, but in order for them to win, they need him to just go off. He is their star player. He is their leader point guard, and if they want to win, he needs to put on a show against Duke. He needs to be that man, and he needs to take over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if Miami wants to win, it's got to be those guards. They got Charlie Moore back there. He's kind of been the lead guy, but they have two, three, maybe even four guards that can score. They run some 4-guard lineups, so like they don't have a best player, but one they just need one of those guys to show up, and if any of them can be the best player on the floor, then they have a chance.
All right. You got 4, sorry, slate, and I had to do mental math there. 4 games left, 2 today, 2 tomorrow. When the 4 are done, what will we be saying about the final 4?
Blue bloods, the bluest of bloods. Because we could be looking at like Villanova, Duke, Kansas, and North Carolina. Like after all these upsets, I mean it's March Madness, so I bet we don't see all 4 of them, but
it's very likely that there's a really good chance that we will. I would have to agree with that. Going to be talking about how North Carolina got probably underranked and how the ACC somehow just got left out this year.
what I do think is funny about what you said, Theo, is if it was like that, CBS would be so mad because they've been broadcasting this tournament for like 60 years or something. And then the year, I mean, I know they switch every year, every other year, I should say. But then the year that like the four blue bloods are in, it's on TBS. Like I understand, it's all in the family or whatever. But they would be just so mad, dude, because like, last year CBS got it. It was only in Indianapolis. And I don't know. Baylor, Gonzaga, Houston. What was the fourth team last year? Baylor, Gonzaga, Houston, and
UCLA.
UCLA.
UCLA was an 11 seed.
Yeah, that's a good one. But if they got like you said, four blue bloods, that really stink. And it's also, a really great potential matchup for those fake fans out there. So I feel like they'd have a lot of fun.
The Duke fans with no connection to Duke.
Okay. I feel like that. Okay. I wanted to, when it was that time in my life, I wanted to apply to Duke just to get the rejection letter. But then I found out it was like $120 just to apply. And I was like, I could just like forge someone's from like Google and say it's mine. But yeah, I don't know why people get so mad about that. Like, it's like, I really don't get why people care like what college team they root for.
I think it's allowed under the condition you must also cheer on the Duke football team.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose your sports. You got to go all out.
Yeah, but that's like stupid. People don't do that about pro teams. Why is it any different?
I make fun of those people. If you are a Lakers fan, but you're also a Yankees fan.
Okay, well, that's totally different. That's like the worst
I've
of the
met
worst.
people like that.
No,
Those
I'm
people
saying
that-
people that like are like Utah Jazz fans, but then they like the Steelers. Like that's just weird, but they don't get ridiculed for it.
Yeah, but they probably should, is what I'm saying.
Okay, what about me then? I'm a Twins fan, but I'm also a Bears fan. Does that make me weird?
I could understand why, when you were a kid, you wouldn't want to be a Cubs or White Sox fan. And
That's true.
Twins also really weird. I don't know why you picked
I mean,
them.
it's growing up in Minnesota, you don't have much else to cheer for. I mean, there's not much winning going around, so kind of stuck with what you got.
And none of these teams are Duke. Like that's what it all is. Duke is just bad. Duke bad.
Duke bad.
I don't know. Sounds like
Steven, are you cheering for Duke to go all the way?
no, I just, gave Zion that money from my delivering paper pyramid scheme and, cried when they lost on a random Friday in March, however many years ago. And no, it's irrelevant.
If you put tears into it, you can call yourself a Duke fan. I'll give it to you. You paid
Yeah, and
the price.
it was like we said it was like 2015, 2016. So I'm like, a young adult. So,
yeah, you were a little old to be crying, but sports do that sometimes. So
and if a college team
team.
can do that and, I have no connection to, then, it's legit. All right. I'm going to stop now because if we don't, it's just going to get later and I'm going to ramble on more and then we're going to talk about something and then inevitably it'll get cut off and then, that won't be good for anybody. So, I don't know. We'll be back again soon. Sunday, I guess. Or who knows?
Mm-hmm. Hopefully we can talk more St. Peter's on Sunday. I hope this wasn't the last time.
Maybe according to the mainstream media, if St. Peter's wins, how they think, everybody in New Jersey is waiting on pins and needles for that result. Maybe like this entire state will burn down. So that's how much they think that we care. Like we really don't.
It will be a state holiday on Monday in the state of New Jersey if the St. Peter's Peacocks win. Nobody will go to work because everyone will be out celebrating.
Phil Murphy will be like, oh, they play in New Jersey. Wow, that's cool. That's how this is a much bigger deal around the country than it is in the state. I'm just saying.
I think Phil Murphy might have had them in his Elite Eight.
There's no way.
I swear he had like Rutgers and Seton Hall like also in the Final Four. So like it was clearly some New Jersey bias, but like
I refuse to believe that Phil Murphy
St.
knows that St. Peter's exists, and let alone in Jersey City, New Jersey. See, this is what happened. I wanted to stop this like a minute ago, and then we bring up Phil Murphy like 4 times. Anyways, all right, I'm really ending it now.
But now people are gonna have to look up Phil Murphy's bracket and find out that he knows more about college basketball.
Thanks, Phil. All right. That's Theo, that's Ethan. I'm just some guy. And we'll catch you on the next one.